Welcome to Comic Chop News. This week we are continuing our countdown to It Chapter 2. This week, though, I will be reviewing the second part of the Tommy Lee Wallace directed It TV movie. In this one, it features the adult versions of the Losers Club coming back home to Derry and basically fulfilling their promises. We start right out with Big Bill. He comes back and he visits Georgie's grave. And as he's at the grave, he turns and he sees these empty plots being dug. And then Pennywise comes out and he said 6 more to fill. And there's one at the end, which would be Stan, his plot. They don't know that Stan is dead yet. And from there, we start seeing them all start filing back. Bill goes to visit Mike at the library, and they have their nice reunion. And we then go to Mike's house, where there's a montage of them riding around on Bill's old bike Silver that Mike managed to buy at one of the stores. You keep hearing the song "It's All Right." It must have been the only song they could license when they were doing the movie, or Tommy Lee Wallace really liked it. But on from there, we have Richie Tozier comes back, and he's disgusted that the old movie theater closed down. And as he's driving by it, he notices on the other end of the marquee that it says "Rest in peace, Richie Tozier. Born this date, dead this date." He starts freaking out, and he goes to the library to find Mike. Mike had already left with Bill at this point, so he's like, "I'm just going to sit and wait." And then Pennywise in the upper level of the library starts taunting him and cracking these jokes. And then all these balloons fall and blow up and blood squirts everywhere. And Richie just completely freaks out and runs out of there.
Is everything all right?
Yes. Last chance, Tozier. Get out before it gets dark tonight. You're too old to stop me. You're all too old.
No, Mike Hanlon, if you see...
Excuse me, sir. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
No, Mike Hanlon, that I had to go, that I had to get cleaned up. Tell him.
Basically making the librarian who was there think that he's insane. Bev is next to come back, and she goes to where her old house was, rings the doorbell, finds out her dad's long gone, and the old woman's talking to her, and it starts getting a little creepier, and then the old woman turns out as Pennywise. We've seen in Chapter 2, the teaser that they showed at Comic-Con, a new, more creepier version of this scene happening with Jessica Chastain. I can't wait to see the full version of it, because I had heard there was like a crazy moment of the old lady naked chasing her around the house, which of course they couldn't show in the teaser trailer. And from there, we next have Eddie, and he comes back. He goes to the pharmacy to get his asthma medication, and he sees the old pharmacist from when he was a kid there, and he goes to, try to tell him thank you, because he tried to tell him what his mom was doing to him, that he wasn't ever really sick, that it was water. And he kind of gets possessed by Pennywise telling him to leave. Ben comes back, and Ben, there is kind of a nice moment where he's flashing back to Henry Bowers chasing him, and then he sees this other kid getting chased and going down the hill right where he had dropped over by the over the Barrens. And he goes over, tells the kid it's gonna be all right, cleans off his wound, and then he starts flashing back to Pennywise over by the standpipe, the well house, and he runs back up the hill into the car. They're driving off, and as they're driving, he sees the clown on the side of the road waving at him and pointing, and a balloon pops up into the car and says, "Turn back now." So he's kind of getting to them all as they're coming back into town. doing his teasing. The kids end up going out to, well, they're not even kids. As adults, they all meet up at the Chinese restaurant where they agreed to, where, they all have their moment back together. Richie's freaking out, profusely sweating, nervous, not knowing how to handle it. When Bev shows up, she's like, "Oh, you're all these beautiful men," and then passes out. We go into another montage of them all eating and rehashing, and then Pennywise makes his move where they go to open the fortune cookies. There's an eye or a roach. Another one was like lobster claws come out or crab claws and starts going around. And they started having disagreements before this of like, I don't want to deal with this. I want to go home. And Mike was just like, look, let's just talk about it. And then if you want to go, you want to go. You fulfilled your promise coming back. After the whole freak out with the Chinese food, they go back to the hotel they were at. And at this point, Pennywise has started haunting Henry Bowers and appearing to him as Belch and telling him, he needs him to get out and take revenge against the kids that shamed him when he was a kid. He basically breaks Henry Bowers out. In this, there's a ludicrous scene where Pennywise attacks the guard, but it's Pennywise's suit with a Doberman's head. I'm not gonna lie, the effects are terrible, just absolutely terrible. So while this is going on, they're actually at the library at this point, the Losers Club, and they're trying to get a hold of Stan. At this point, they don't know. They find out now that Stan is dead, and they go to get a beer out of the fridge, and Stan's head is in there, and there's this hysterical thing of him kind of cracking into all of them, the dismembered head in the fridge. I don't know why I find it funny, it just was, and he's kind of cracking jokes about Eddie's sex life, or what sex life.
Stan! Sorry I'm late. Well, let's see who's here. Billy boy! Richie, you still here? We never expected you to stick around. Nice nose job. No one would ever suspect. Haystack! Putting on a little weight, huh? Speaking of dads, Bevy, yours isn't worried about you anymore. He loves your choice in men. Wheezy, how's your sex life? What's your sex life? Well, Mikey, you did it. You got us all back here. I guess it's because it's the only way you'd ever see us. Since you're so lame, you'd never leave this town. I finally made it, guys. I'm in the deadlights now.
And the more reality, so they go back to the motel or the hotel, and another hysterical moment. Pennywise kind of starts messing with them. Henry at this point is attacking Mike, and Beverly shows up into Ben's room, and they're talking, and she calls out the poem. Your hair is winter fire, January embers, my heart burns there too. And they start to kiss, and he looks in the mirror, and Bev turns into Pennywise, and he turns like, kiss me, fat boy. So it freaks out, and while that's going on, you start hearing the struggle going on in Mike's room, and Ben and Eddie try to get Henry off of Mike, and at this point, both of them are stabbed. Mike is stabbed, not mortally, and Henry has been stabbed dead. So they kind of just leave the body and leave, and this time the real Bev goes to Ben and says that she knows he wrote it, and they really do kiss, and he's like, are you the clown? Are you messing with me? And at the hospital, Mike says that he got the silver slugs that they used when they were kids. He had gone back into the sewers and gotten them. He was suicidal and was hoping Pennywise was going to kill him, but then he got those and then came back out, and by that point his hair had started turning gray. like within a day. And the Losers Club decides that at this point they're gonna face Pennywise again. They have to. The Bill's haunted by basically the death of Georgie, and during this time, Audra, Bill's wife, has come looking for Bill, and Pennywise manages to get her in the deadlights, basically, and took her. So by the time they go back down into the sewers, the first thing Bill finds is Audra's purse. And he starts running off without them, already kind of messing everything up because they need to be together to be strong. And the Pennywise starts with his head games again. And we now find Pennywise's true form. Or at least the form he's chosen to be, because they at least in the book, they basically say, they say his true form, the human mind basically can't comprehend. It would drive them insane. And kind of that might be what Audra saw in the deadlights, is what made her catatonic. He takes the form of a giant spider, and this is some Jason and the Argonauts level shit bad of like stop motion. And like by stop motion, not the smooth Star Wars kind, like this is literally Jason the Argonauts bad stop motion. They managed to injure him, but in the process of it, Eddie is killed. And after Eddie dies, like the anger, you kind of see it in the actors' eyes. They chase it down, push it over, and then start attacking, and then you see just camera focused on them just punching down, and then they show in the shadows with the light from the deadlights on the gut of the spider, them raising up the heart, kind of like cavemen, and then like they show them like kind of crush it, and they show the light just start to dim, and the spider's just dead at this point. We go into kind of the epilogue. Where they go, they all split up again. Bill stayed longer. Audra is completely catatonic. She just getting where her mind is just shot, blown. And Richie has gone, he'd left, and he found a partner who weirdly resembled Eddie and continued his comedy movies. We also had Ben and Bev leave, and they immediately were married and were pregnant. And they mention in this how all of the kids who left became famous or, had great lives, but were unable to have children. So right away, the curse of Derry ended. They were right away pregnant and having children. Mike was okay. He lived. Bill weirdly remembers how he outran the devil on Silver as a kid with Stan, and he puts Audra on Silver, and he starts riding around town recklessly on the bike, going down hills as fast as he can, pedaling as fast, and trying to break the spell on her. And as it starts getting more and more dangerous, as he's going down the hill, weaving through traffic, she starts to grab him and wake up. And it ends with, her like grabbing him and holding him, and he's on the bike in the middle of traffic, and then we cut to the credits and we hear Pennywise laugh. Not the most satisfactory ending, and unfortunately that's kind of the way it ended in the book too, which except not as good. Like when Pennywise dies in the book, it has catastrophic circumstance, like results for the town. Like it just starts getting wrecked. Like the town literally starts falling apart. It becomes like a natural disaster. And I have a feeling we'll see that in It Chapter 2 in the movie because, you know, it'll have a budget. And it's really hard to judge this movie because, one, it was a TV movie. You couldn't go all in on the violence and other things. Budget-wise, it just didn't have the budget to do a lot of the things. So I hate unfairly judging this, especially now that the movie came out with such a big budget. But I never gravitated, even the book, with the adult parts of it. Everything was just much scarier when it was from the viewpoint of the children. And when they became adults, like, even Pennywise comments that it's the sense of wonder and belief as you get older dies when you now have all these adult problems. And maybe that's how it was written to show, like, just as an adult it became boring. I love the first part of this. Well, love might be a little strong. It was stronger than the second half. The second half, again, like, the spider thing still bothers me because it looks so cheap. And, again, budget was a concern probably, so I'm trying not to hold against it, but it's hard not to. The actors, I love John Ritter. Harry Anderson was good. Annette O'Toole was good. The guy who played Bill, I didn't love that much. He just... Something about him was just kind of bland. The guest appearance by Richard Masur's head in the fridge was great. He's great in Mr. Boogedy, and he was in The Thing. God, The Thing's great. Yeah, it was okay. I'm probably going to give it a 5 out of 10. As far as the entire movie is 1, I think a 6.5 is about the right grade for it. Tim Curry's performance maybe could push it to a 7, but I don't want to get over the moon about it because it was just okay. It wasn't beautiful, wonderful, but there was like a sinister maliciousness to it with a kind of sinister humor. There was a bite to it. It's worth watching. I'd even say it's worth buying if you can find it cheap enough. Definitely with part 2 coming out in September, I'm sure they're going to show it on TV a couple of times. If you haven't watched it, I recommend watching it. I think it's worth it. Just know that you're going to find yourself comparing the TV movie and the reboot. It's almost unfair to do it, but I constantly am comparing and contrasting Bill Skarsgård versus Tim Curry. I mean, completely different performances, but in some aspects, they bring different things to the table that the other one doesn't. And I know for Bill Skarsgård, it was by choice. He didn't want to ape Tim Curry, and honestly, who can? So with that being said, I am going to wrap up this review, and next week we'll be doing the Andy Muschietti It Chapter 1, and then I will, after I see the movie on opening night, we'll be doing a quick reaction review, non-spoiler of course. Can't wait to see it. That's 2 hours and 45 minutes of just some clown action. And that was another thing. Before I leave, there really wasn't a ton of Pennywise or Tim Curry in this second part. His screen time felt like it was way, way down compared to the first part. I don't know if that was by design. I don't know, there was something, I just felt like he was not in the second part as much as he was in the first part. So yeah, again, sorry, got sidetracked. Thank you for joining me. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and tell me what you think of the movie. I'm open to hearing. I don't know if everybody compares and contrasts like I do. But take care and see you next week.